Looking to streamline your practice? Check out Therapy Notes, rated #1 among mental health professionals. Therapy Notes offers all the tools you need to thrive, whether you're a solo clinician or part of a group practice. Try it free for 2 months with promo code MODERN.
Therapists, do you know if your clients are getting successfully reimbursed with the super bills you give them? Insurance can be confusing to navigate, leading clients to quit therapy early. Join hundreds of therapists who use Thrizer as their go-to resource for successful out-of-network reimbursements, helping them get and keep clients in their practice. Visit join.thrizer.com/modern therapist to learn more and get started.
You're listening to the Modern Therapist Survival Guide, where therapists live, breathe, and practice as human beings. To support you as a whole person and a therapist, here are your hosts, Curt Widhelm and Katie Vernoy.
Welcome back, Modern Therapists. This is the Modern Therapist Survival Guide. I'm Curt Widhelm with Katie Vernoy, and this is the podcast for therapists about the things that are happening in our field, the ways that the world impacts our businesses. And I've been hearing from a lot of group practices lately. I'm assuming that this is probably also true for some individual practices, but they're not talking to me. So you can always reach out to me. Let me know what's going on in your practices. Might turn it into a podcast episode someday. But I have been hearing from some of the group practices around me. Calls are way down this year. Our Google ad spend is up. Our number of calls is down. Psychology Today seems to be just another place on the internet for me to put a picture and a description, but it's not turning into clients. And what is happening? So to help us along with this conversation, we are inviting back and having back our good friend Katie Reed. She has been a therapist. She has helped people develop their own practices, coaching sort of stuff, and just kind of talking about like what's going on in the therapy world where it overlaps with business these days. So thank you very much for joining us once again, Katie Reed.
You're welcome, Curt and Katie. Good to be back.
We're so excited to talk with you again. And for anyone who typically listens on 1.5 speed, don't do it for this episode. Katie and I just start talking super fast.
Katie has issues. The Katies have issues together collectively. We were out to dinner not long ago, and woo, even our husbands were just trying to keep up. It was a whole thing.
Yeah. So if you're at 1.5 speed, slow it down, maybe 1.25. It will literally give you a headache if you do 1.5. So anyway.
That's really how I most wanted to be introduced. Is like, this is because she talks too fast and it'll give you a headache. It's an issue.
Yes. No, I think I was actually talking about this Katie who talks too fast, especially when enticed by another fast speaker. Anyway, so for the folks who don't know you yet, although why don't they know you? But let them know, who are you? It's an issue. Who are you and what are you putting out into the world?
Mostly, I'm just friends with you guys. That's my biggest claim to fame. Yes, it's the best. I am a therapist, like I would say, all your listeners, and a longtime therapist who actually shifted a couple of years ago into the entrepreneurial space. I've helped a lot of therapists launch coaching businesses, online courses, things like that. I really found that my love of being a therapist translated also into my love of building businesses and helping people build businesses and doing coaching and all of those things. So that is where I am at right now in the world. And I am kind of fascinated by the exact things Curt was talking about in the introduction, which is that how we see business shift over time and these very broad swaths. And so what you might be thinking as a therapist sitting home thinking my calls are down and it must be me and I must be a loser and maybe I need a new headshot or maybe I need to update my bio. Really, I think it's actually very reassuring when you hear, oh, wait a second, calls are down for everybody. This is affecting the whole industry. I love getting into that and getting into the whys and wherefores of why that might be and why we see that happening, because it's not just happening for therapists. It is happening for coaches. It is happening for online course creators, for online membership creators, for retreat leaders, for a whole host of the different places that therapists have moved and tried to expand their businesses and their marketing into as well. So I'm excited to talk a little bit more about that.
Is it AI? Is it that AI has taken over and now everybody is just like, I would rather pay $5 for AI therapy than whatever it is that people are charging?
It's all the robots. That's what we're here to talk about today. The robots have taken over.
They're taking our jobs, those darn robots.
Taking our jobs left and right. I actually think being a therapist in the age of AI is probably one of the greatest things you can be, right? To be able to be one of the last bastions of human to human contact left after the robot revolution comes to town. Oh, such a good question. But I mean, we can get in a little bit realistically to what we are seeing. So, Curt, you mentioned that you're seeing and you're hearing from people that calls are down, just everything seems down from the past couple years, where let's face it, during COVID, everybody was full, everybody had waiting lists, there felt like every client you had for the past 20 years was suddenly calling you back and trying to get back in. And it was a good time to be a therapist. It's a weird way to say it. People were in a lot of pain and needed help, but it was a good time to be a therapist in terms of your business and your practice really growing and booming during that time. And now we're seeing such a shift. And I think we can all point really obviously, at least in this country, to what we're seeing in the economy, that people are just feeling like life in general is so much more expensive. And that unfortunately, therapy, buying online courses, buying online coaching, all of these things very quickly become seen as luxury items for a great many people, for people that really could still continue to live their life decently enough without the support of their therapist. When they're feeling that financial pinch, it becomes the luxury item that goes on that budgetary chopping block for their family. And so we're definitely seeing that. And I think in the run up, as we're in right now, to yet another contentious election in our country, that also makes people hold a little bit more tightly to their money and to feel a little bit more nervous about what's coming up and what's coming up in the budget. So I do think people in the therapy world are seeing that. I think there's also other pieces of it. I mean, obviously, I think in COVID, there was a great deal of true pain that people were really seeking help for. And then as we've emerged from the shadow of all of that, people suddenly went, oh, I haven't been on vacation in a couple of years. I haven't gotten to do like all the fun discretionary spending I would normally do. I've got some extra money. I've got this cushion because of it. I want to go spend this on fun stuff. Suddenly a trip to Europe sounds way more exciting than sitting in Curt's office telling him your problems every week. I mean, it's understandable, right? So it's just one of those things that people started spending on more of the fun stuff that they had missed out on for the past couple of years and just shifting their budget in that direction. And we see that and hear that from a lot of folks. And I do think just that little bit of, even for the people who truly are not necessarily that permanently impacted, let's say, by inflation and by like somebody who's not, their budget is not truly that impacted if like milk is costing $1 more this week. There is still the fear factor of it. There is still the fear mongering of it in the news. There's all of these things that are making people feel like they're broke or like brokenness is just around the horizon and they need to be really careful with everything. And it's impacting what they do, what they purchase, who they sign up with, all that jazz.
I think a lot of therapists during the pandemic became kind of burnt out, maybe because they were seeing so many therapy clients because there were so many clients to have. They shifted into this more course or coaching model and those types of things. And people were buying it because there was so much time and discretionary funds to be able to do that personal growth work or to start this new thing that seemed really exciting. And so to me, I feel like there's been this big shift from I can take this time to work on myself to, okay, life's back to normal and money's going to be tighter. So you have to be really strict with your decision making. How are you suggesting that folks kind of respond to this shift in purchasing decision making?
I love that. And especially, I like that you branch the conversation out into just sort of the online education space in general, because it is booming. It continues to boom. It obviously boomed a lot during COVID, but it does continue to boom right now. And what we're seeing a lot of is the exact same thing that people are seeing in the therapy space. I love that you said personal growth, because that's so true. When people feel like they have that cushion, that is when they're looking at the personal growth. That's when they're looking at, oh, I have a little extra time. I have a little extra freedom. I'm feeling a little breathing room. Now I really want to go towards self-actualization, not just basic survival, getting through the day, but now I've got this time that I'm going to take that, whatever it is that you've always been, a tarot course or that, whatever it is that you've always been interested in that like sounds so fun and curiosity inducing for you. People were jumping into those things left and right. And then of course, as we get back, feeling a little bit more like we're in survival mode, we start to cut back on those things. And so what can you do as somebody who is in this space? So recently, I actually have a new business partner now, a woman named Haley Burkhead. She and I are working together. And we did a marketing lab recently because we were interested in finding out, particularly in the online space. So online course creators, online coaches, online membership service creators, things like that. What were they seeing in the space? And we talked to people from all over, from newer creators up to very established people with multi-million-dollar yearly revenue stream type businesses, just to say, what are you seeing? And it was really interesting, some of the results of that. So there are certain things that even 2 or 3 years ago, people had a lot of patience for, I'll say, that they don't have patience for anymore. So for example, if you are a therapist and maybe you're trying to sell a coaching program as well, or an online course that you've created or anything like that, you might have learned a couple years ago what was working like crazy back then was a very long, very detailed, very informative webinar. And what we are seeing is it's not COVID anymore, and nobody is sitting through the 90-minute, the 2-hour webinar. They will not sit through it anymore. They want information quickly. It has to be extremely targeted, extremely direct, and it has to speak very specifically to an acute pain point that they are feeling. One thing we've definitely seen, and this is consistently a challenge for therapists moving into coaching or courses, is that people, when they're not in what Katie talked about, that personal growth space, that sort of self-actualization space, they're not really spending money on programs that are just saying, oh, I'll help you find balance. I'll help you live authentically. They're not really spending money on those types of things because it's not a concrete pain point in their life. Whereas if you said, if you and your spouse are fighting every single day, I will help you stop fighting. Okay, well, for somebody, that is a very acute, concrete pain point in their life. So people are looking for solutions to very acute pain points. And that's part of, I think, what Curt had mentioned. I forget if it was even before we hopped on, but it's things like when you have in your therapist practice or in your coaching business, a very targeted, very specific pain point that you are truly an expert in, that you truly are like, I help with this thing, and people see themselves reflected there. That is where they're still spending their discretionary income, spending their money, willing to invest, because we're much more willing to invest to get us out of pain when we know I've got to get out of this pain to keep moving forward in my life. We're very willing to invest in that. We're less willing when the purse strings feel tighter to invest in the other stuff that sounds a little more pie in the sky, airy-fairy, and doesn't directly address an acute pain point that we're feeling.
Therapy Notes seamlessly integrates scheduling, documentation, and billing into one easy-to-use platform. Plus, enjoy features like secure messaging, e-prescribe, group telehealth, and more. With 24/7 live customer support, you'll get answers to your questions anytime, anywhere.
No matter your field or specialty, Therapy Notes is dedicated to helping you care more and worry less. So use the promo code MODERN today to try it free for 2 months.
Partway through the pandemic, one of my non-therapist friends sent me a meme that was, therapists don't know when the gravy train is going to end, but it's going to end. And kind of speaking to everybody who was coming to therapy during the pandemic kind of things. And I think what you're talking about is something that we were mentioning before the show is that, or before we started recording, is that I'm not seeing the same drop off in my practice that some of the other practices that are reaching out to me. And part of it was a decision that I had made within our practice a couple of years ago, which was to listen to all of the advice that Curt and Katie have been putting out for years, and recognizing that people are going to not want all of their therapy online. People are going to want to come into the office. And some of the the competitors that are taking over the bigger therapy space, the onlines, the BetterHelps, even some of the larger, you know, Lyras and the Headway kinds of things that are just virtual kinds of things, that we leaned in the opposite direction. Who are the people who absolutely are going to want to be seen in person? Things like really difficult family therapy systems, people who really want very, very practical, highly dysregulated, skills kinds of things. So we had made a move a couple of years ago to be, this is the space that we want to operate in. And we've seen some of the consistency in that. It's not something that like, okay, we're going to, just pivot on a dime because that's what everybody's, reacting to right now. But some of, I guess, what you're talking to that I want to reinforce is stuff that Katie and I have been talking about for years, which is, in addition to be good at marketing, how about just be really good at what you're doing?
I love that. I love how you guys doubled down. You looked at where people were going and you said, there's going to be a certain percentage of the population who wants the exact opposite. So let's go be experts there. I love that. And I think you said you really started this process like 2 years ago, and you're really this summer reaping the results of that, which is pretty amazing to hear. And I love that. I think anybody who you can truly look for yourself as a clinician, as a person, and say, what do I love? Not just how can I chase a buck, how can I get that next client call in the door, but what do I love? Like something I've been doing in my own life in general as a business owner, but also as a person, I think of it as acting backwards. So figuring out like, what is the actual goal for me in my life? So what is the actual goal for you in your practice or in your coaching business or your course or whatever it is? What's the goal? And then really completely breaking that down and acting backwards from that goal. So not just, I'm in a panic today, I'm going to go change my psych today and I'll put up a different picture and see if somebody calls me. But like, okay, let's really step back and program design our ideal practice, and then act backwards from there. And I think that would be a beautiful thing for all of your listeners who might be struggling a little bit to start putting in place now. And it may be that you start reaping those rewards in 6 months, but those rewards will be so much greater by the time they get there because you've gone completely in the direction of that ultimate goal, which I love. That's great, Curt.
I think the challenge I see for some therapists is that the goal they have is one that may not be realistic. And I think it's hard to maybe for folks to hear it, but I see folks, and I'm one of these people, and I have a different plan, but I look at Curt's practice and I absolutely don't want Curt's practice. He's got a lot of high risk teens, families. He's got stuff that I've moved away from in my career. And I think the way that Curt has tapped into this is that he's been willing to handle high risk, high acuity cases in person with a lot of resources put around it. And he's really good at it. And don't get a big head, Curt. I know I don't always tell you this, but you're really good at it. And so I think for me, I think looking at some folks, especially, and we have an episode that we're going to be putting out with a couple of friends around kind of expectations on what it means to be a therapist. But I see folks, whether it's in their therapy practice or moving into the coaching space, wanting to really lean into that personal growth, airy-fairy, pie in the sky kind of ideas. And they build that without a recognition that people are not going to pay for that, or they're not going to pay that much that you need to live your life for that. And so to shift the conversation just a little bit, how do we get to a place that we want to give something that people want to buy?
I love that. That's such a good question. And this is one thing. So all the therapists that I've worked with over the years who have tried to move, let's say, beyond the practice, beyond the office, and into an online business of whatever kind, this is one of the hardest shifts. And I believe it's because as therapists, we're trained to look at the whole person. We're trained to be strengths-based and strengths-focused. We're trained to look at the entire systems around a person's life. We're trained to do all these really beautiful things that really are part of healing. And then the truth is, when you have to bring yourself online in today's marketplace, today's very crowded, very loud, very chaotic marketplace of the online world, all of that stuff that we're trained for, all of that very big, airy-fairy, like we said, stuff that we're trained in, but that really is real, like that really has such validity in the room, one-on-one itself. That though just becomes part of the noise out in the bigger space of the online world. And the only way that we actually capture someone's attention so that we can go deeper, so that we can do the personal growth work with them, is that we have to capture their attention first by speaking directly to where it hurts. We have to speak directly to the pain point. So if Curt's whole specialty is high-risk teenagers, we can all, whether you're a parent or not, imagine the stress of that parent who will do anything, pay anything, tell me how many times a week to show up. Please, I just want my son or daughter to feel better. I just want my child to not be in this pain or to not be behaving in these ways or whatever it is. And so when we speak directly to where it hurts, that is only where we begin to rise above the noise. And so while you might know deep down as a therapist that really what you're going to do is a whole bunch of personal growth work and a whole bunch of authenticity work and balance work and all these things, that will not get their attention first. So for example, when I'm helping people with marketing and they're coming to me and saying, well, I help professional women find balance, what I always say to them is, no, you need to figure out, what is this quote unquote professional woman saying in her own head at the end of the night that really sucked about her day every single day? And you need to speak to her about that thing, whether it's the jerky boss, whether it's the stress of trying to parent and be a working mom. You need to figure out what is the inner monologue in her head. I always call it the if only. If only this one thing would get better, everything in my life would change. Because we all have those, right? Now, they're not necessarily true. It's not like if only I would get a new boss, everything in my life would change. But man, in the moment when you're laboring under that boss you can't stand, it sure feels like it. It sure feels like it. So we look for those if only buttons with our clients that we are most interested in going deep with them on, because only from there, only from catching their attention first with that deeper pain point, do we even get the opportunity to help them find the personal growth and the self-actualization and all the deeper things that most of us get really excited to work on. But if you can't even catch their attention in the first place, you never even get that chance with them, and they never get that chance with you, which is the even sadder part.
As both of you have been talking, part of what I've been thinking about myself in my own practice is I do have a healthy amount of personal growth clients, but it's because I met them when they were in those really big pain points. I don't know many people who have successfully gone out and been, I want a practice of all very, enlightened people who just need like that last 1.5%. And I am here to have that practice where everybody comes in ready for that last 1.5%. That it's more of, I've accumulated people who are ready to finish the journey with me, but they started with needing 30, 40, 50, 80, 90% in order to get there.
I love that. That's so well expressed. And then that is the joy of the work, but you had to start at the tougher part to even get them in the door. That's exactly right. And if we're just talking about catching their attention online in general, whatever it is, whether it's on your website, whether it's on your site today, whether it's on the website for your coaching program, I really think what is working right now the best is, I look at TikTok and I feel like TikTok culture has infiltrated all of our attention spans, whether we want to believe it or not, whether you're even a major consumer of TikTok or not, it has changed the way that we interact with video, with online spaces, with all of it. It's significantly changed it. And really, I look at that and I think, okay, this is the direction that current attention spans are going. So we need to follow that. So along the lines with like what I was saying earlier, your long webinar, nobody's going to watch it anymore. It's similar to everything you're doing. Your long copy on a website or on a sales page, nobody's reading it anymore. People want the bullet points. They want fast, quick. They also really want information that is visually represented. And this to me is so important in our culture of constant multitasking and constant distractions. Anything we can do to kind of hit people's attention from multiple points of view. Like it used to be that you could just put up some nice copy on a website and people would sit down and read it and take it in and sign up for your therapy or buy your program or whatever it was. Now it's not like that so much. Now we kind of need to come from multiple different angles to catch the attention spans and the ways that different people want to take in information differently. And we are a highly visual culture. So obviously we've seen short, compelling video works amazingly well. But there's also other ways to do it. There's also ways that you could do, say, a very visual representation of what someone's journey through therapy might look like. Maybe you're creative and you can get out there and do something that's a bit more artistic, a bit more creative of how they might feel coming in, how they might feel going out, what the process, the ups and downs in the middle might look like. Those little bits, those visual hooks, someone will remember those more than they'll remember your copy that you labored over for hours and hours, more even than that maybe reel you put on your professional Instagram page that also took you hours and hours to try to record and edit and get just right. But even just any simple visual graphic, something that jumps off the page a little bit at them and they go, oh, I get it now. You just showed me a formula in this visual form and I remember that and it stuck with me and it clicked. Those types of things are really important in the culture today, simply because you're competing with a busy online marketplace. You're competing with very highly skilled content creators. So you're trying to get someone's attention and say, hey, you should come to therapy here, or you should come buy my coaching program. But the very next video is going to be some really fascinating video about a new dinosaur bone they found. And that person's going to be sucked right into dinosaur bones on the very next thing on their newsfeed. And you have no control over that. And so it is hard to stand out in that. And you need to kind of honor that. Your goal is to be the best and most compelling thing. And generally, like you were saying, Curt, speaking to them at that moment of pain will be the best and most compelling thing. Showing them there's a way out of that pain will be the best and most compelling thing. And getting really clear for yourself, like you did with your practice, and like Katie, like you did with your practice, and saying, I don't want the super high risk anymore. I did that for years. I'm kind of done with that now. Being really clear about that helps you speak with so much more confidence and so much more authority to what you are most meant to do and who you are most meant to help.
Are you finding that the people who are creating kind of the shorter form content, the TikToks, and spending a lot of this time and energy in that, are they getting the return on investment for that? I mean, it seems like spending a lot of time on social media is a good way to spend a lot of time on social media. And
Yes.
maybe this is just because I'm more focused on kind of the people who can geographically get to my physical office locations, that I don't see necessarily the return on investment for spending so much time on, anybody in the world who can do this. But are you seeing this actually pay off for people to invest tons and tons of time on kind of the social media content?
I think it depends on how you define payoff. So I'm not a big social person. I've actually largely taken almost the whole last year off of social. I haven't posted much at all myself. I also grew my business over $1 million with very, very little social following. So I'm never, ever, ever one of these people who believes, oh, you've got to have 100,000 people on Instagram and anything like that. I just don't believe it. I've seen it in my own life and in my clients' lives not to be true. So in that way, no, if you don't like social, let it go. Like, let it go. If it is not your thing, let it go. Now, in terms of payoff, I also have clients and friends who love it. It feeds them. It's exciting to them. It's a creative outlet. And because they love it, that shows through in their content. They do get clients from it. It really, really, they genuinely thrive in whatever realm of creativity they're thriving in. I can give you one funny example, though, in terms of a local business where I live in Arizona. I started getting these really hilarious little TikToks. I'm not kidding you, from a dentist office. This totally local practice, a little dentist office, started putting out really funny little TikToks. And I was showing them to my husband because they were cracking me up. And he's like, that's it. We're changing dentists. We're going there. Like, they're hilarious. And so, I mean, we have a dentist like across the street. It's so close. But he's like, I don't care. I'm driving to these people. They're so funny that I want to go there. So I do think if you're one of those people that thrives and you're creative or you love putting out that stuff, it can absolutely take off for you. But I would say if it drains you, and I know you guys are kind of like me, like I think we all find it kind of draining. We've talked about that before. It's not really like our great love in life to have to be like, I'm hanging out with my kids. I should record it for social media. Like that is not my life. I don't enjoy that. So if it drains you and it makes you kind of miserable, I do not think you need it to grow your business to whatever you want it to be. But if you love it, absolutely. I think it can be huge for a lot of people.
While superbills can be helpful for your private pay clients, they don't help clients access therapy today. When clients see you weekly or biweekly, they may be out hundreds of dollars before they receive reimbursements 4 to 6 weeks later, which can be financially straining on them. Thriser's mission is to help clients access therapy today by working to get them instantly reimbursed for out-of-network sessions.
First, you can help your prospects instantly verify their out-of-network benefits with Thriser, providing them complete transparency on the cost of therapy ahead of their first session. Then, just by charging your clients via Thriser's payment platform, you can offer them courtesy claim submission and end-to-end claim management, and even let your clients just pay a coinsurance for sessions, similar to in-network copays, to skip the reimbursement wait entirely. How? Thriser covers the rest of your fees so you get paid in full up front, and they wait for a reimbursement on your client's behalf.
Thriser also has a Superbill uploads feature, which is completely free for therapists. If you'd like to instead offer your clients a resource to manage their own superbills. Thriser manages all claims end to end, so you and your clients don't need to deal with any of the insurance stress. Visit join.thriser.com/modern therapist and use our promo code Modern Therapists to start your free trial and receive waived fees for your first $2,500 in payments.
I love that feedback because I think so many folks come into the space and they find their therapist business building coaches on social media, and then they're taught you have to be on social media and this is the type of content you should do on social media and all of those things. And so first off, yay that we don't need to do it if we don't want to. But I think the other part, and this is something I've seen, and so I wanted your opinion on this as well. It seems like influencers or content creators or folks who are using social media for marketing have shifted their messaging, have shifted how they talk about themselves, how they talk about their work. And so what are you seeing that works at this point? Right now, you're saying this dentist was just hilarious, right? And so for folks that are more in this person-to-person business, whether it's course, coaching or therapy, what's actually working to try to connect to potential clients?
That's a great question. And I think it comes back similar to what I was saying to Curt. I think it comes back to you and your personality. And so I'm going to be really honest. If you are not bright and bubbly on video and you're putting out a bunch of videos of you talking to the camera, people are going to scroll right by. I think we need to look realistically at our strengths. And you might say, boy, I'm kind of boring on video. I'm going to really make a choice to get better and I'm going to practice. And this is important to me and I want to improve it. But if you're not willing to put in that work, then I think you need to find a different way to create content if you want to, that does speak to your strengths. So for example, maybe you're a great writer. There's plenty of people out there building entire, almost faceless channels based on good writing. Yeah, like based on good little bits of copy or good pieces of information that you can put out there. Or people who are really creative with reels, who do put together like the little clips of their, I remember for a while I hired a social media manager and she was like, you just need to record and send me like all these clips of your daily life, like a clip of you putting on your makeup and doing your workout and doing that. I was like, no, like, it's just not happening. I will never go get my camera and my tripod while I put on it's just not happening because that's just not my style of it. Sure. But some people are so good at it. And the dumb thing is, as much as I refuse to do it, I will sit there and watch somebody's freaking clip of putting on their makeup in the morning with like words over it, talking about their day. Like we do consume that stuff, even if we're not in the space of wanting to create that stuff. So in terms of what should you create, I think the reality is it's looking at your strengths and what you love to do. And then a lot of it truly is testing. You might need to put out 50 posts over 2 months and look at which ones actually perform, because that gives you the information about what people want to learn or consume from you. And it might be unexpected. It might not be what you think. Regarding like the hilarious dental office, I think humor, if you're funny, goes so far. And there are several examples actually out there of kind of internet famous therapists who have really, I'm thinking of like that guy, a modern therapist, Justin something or other. He's really, really funny. There's a lot of people that are great at creating just very funny content. I do think humor is a great way to bridge the gap. It gives people a trust in you. If they know they can share a laugh with you, there's a certain element of like, oh, I trust you. I like you. Like we can laugh together. I think that's important. And then in terms of what else, quote unquote, is working, one thing I teach people a lot, if you really are like, I am not going to be thinking about social media on a weekly basis, I do actually suggest in the program I have right now, I call it low lift social. So if you go to Instagram, it's like 3 across and 3 down. So a typical Instagram grid that fits on one page is the 9 grid. I suggest, and I have done for like entire years at a time, a totally static 9 grid where if let's just say somebody hears about you. Let's say Curt is trying to fill his local therapy practice. Somebody says, oh, you got to check out this guy, Curt. He's my therapist. He's really good. They go look you up on Instagram. I want them to find something. So what I want them to find ideally is a 9 grid, and each one can just be a different picture of you. But I want you to answer within those pictures, what are the basic questions that people are going to be curious about when they first come to you? So for example, Curt might have 9 different pictures of himself. Some might be professional, some might be casual or with the family or whatever. But you think to yourself, what are people curious about when they first look up me or my practice or my office? What do they want to know? So something might be like, one of the questions, you might have a picture of yourself and just go onto Canva, go onto a free service like Canva and write words over your picture and just write like, what is my background? What is my specialty? What do I do in my free time? Like any questions that you think a new potential client would want answered, so that it kind of helps build that trust between you and this new potential client, enough trust for them to take the next step of making the phone call. So for each of those, I would literally have your picture, the question over it, and then they click on that and they're going to get the caption where you've written out the answer to that question, hopefully in a compelling way. And you've offered them the next step. Hey, if you want to book an appointment, call this number. And so just doing that, having that static 9 grid where a new person can come and kind of binge their way through your initial introductory questions, you'd be surprised how much business you can create just doing that and not worrying about constantly filling up your grid or your space with new content all the time.
One of the other things that I'm hearing from particularly newer clinicians getting into the field, and maybe it's just that they need to go back and listen to all of the old things that we've put out there, but it's just kind of like that, not knowing who they are or what kind of practice that they want yet, just knowing that they want to be in private practice. Do you have any advice for kind of getting into, okay, you need to do more than just have a license and a practice place for people to land, as far as getting into the kinds of clients that they want?
I love that. I think so much of that, I don't know about you guys, at least for me, sometimes in the beginning, what you think will be your niche doesn't remain your forever niche. And I think that's so normal because partly when you're first starting out, you might think something is definitely your niche. And I strongly encourage you to go towards whatever you think that might be. And then as you evolve as a I can't tell you how many people they've had one niche and then maybe they got married, couldn't get pregnant, went through IVF. That became a hugely passionate journey. And now they specialize in helping other people going through IVF or helping other people going through divorce or some life experience that they had later that really crystallized for them and said, oh, this is what I'm meant to do. This is what I'm passionate about because I've now had this life experience. And I love that when I see that, because that is truly what I think is the evolution of our stories and the ways that we do move through the world and use those things. So many therapists are just natural teachers, right? Like we really are the kind of people who take in an experience, metabolize it, and then want to teach other people what we've learned along the way, want to help guide other people through having that similar experience. We want to help other people maybe not have that same level of pain that we went through, if at all possible. And so I think partly for a newer clinician, it's trust your instinct, go where you're going to go first, and don't force yourself to think you have to be married to it forever by any means. And I do think much of practice building, maybe just like life, is a matter of testing. It's a matter of testing. What are the things that seem to give me the most return for my investment on practice building? Who are the clients that I genuinely feel lit up by? Oh, maybe that's where I should be looking as my niche. What are the things that seem to give me the most creative excitement when it comes to marketing my practice? Because if you're trying to force yourself into a marketing box that doesn't light you up creatively, you will burn out on it. And that'll be the end of that. So realizing as you go through, just recognizing, taking a step back, looking at your own reactions. Maybe you're the person who goes to a networking event or a networking coffee and you get out of there and you're like, wow, I'm actually lit up. I'm not drained from that. I actually love that. I'm going to double down on networking events or networking coffees. Maybe you're the person who does edit that reel and you don't even care if it doesn't get a huge response because you just had so much fun editing that piece of content. So it's looking and just observing your own responses to things and trusting your joy, trusting yourself to go in that direction that will create that dream practice little by little as you learn about yourself over time.
Where can people find out more about you and all the wonderful things that you're doing?
Thank you for asking. KatieRead.com, KatieRead.com. And right now I'm doing a program with my business partner, like I mentioned, which is not specific just to therapists, which is kind of exciting. So it's all sorts of different people who are growing online coaching programs, online courses, online memberships. And what's fun about that is getting to learn from people beyond just the crucible of our profession, getting to learn from people in all sorts of different walks of life and different niches. And it's really actually very fun. We have several therapists in there, but we also have people who are doing anything and everything. And so it's fun. And I think you get a much more broad picture of what really does work in building a funnel, in marketing, and what you put on a website. You get a much more broad view of all of those things when you get out of the little bubble of just the therapist world and you actually start making friends and making new acquaintances even beyond that world. It's a great time.
And we will include a link to Katie's site over in our show notes at mtsgpodcast.com. Follow us on our social media, join our Facebook group, the Modern Therapist Group, to continue on with the conversation. And until next time, I'm Curt Widhelm with Katie Vernoy and Katie Read.
A final thanks again to our partner Therapy Notes, the highest rated practice management solution for behavioral health. Don't forget that you can use promo code MODERN for 2 free months when you sign up.
Superbills and reimbursement waits are not a reliable solution for out-of-network clients. With just a click of the button, you can offer courtesy claim submission and end-to-end claim management support, and even allow them to skip the reimbursement wait altogether with Thrizer. Visit join.thrizer.com/modern therapist and use our code Modern Therapist to start your free trial today.
Thank you for listening to the Modern Therapist Survival Guide. Learn more about who we are and what we do at mtsgpodcast.com. You can also join us on Facebook and Twitter. And please don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any of our episodes.